Is backs and forwards a relevant game in 2025? A staple of training in the 90s and early noughties, how many times have we stood on pitches marking our direct opponent, someone stands in the middle and poorly hits a ball or kicks a ball into a 1v1 battle, you fight it out, the forward takes on his man and scores, or the back lumps it to the far end of the field. At times, quite unrepresentative of the game. An awful lot of teams, both in hurling and football, have moved away from it, but today I'm going to give you 4 different progressions or adaptations you can use to make backs and forwards a little bit more applicable for modern day coaching, particularly focused on hurling. So our classic backs and forwards was like a staple of training in the 90s and early noughties. Like, I remember training late 90s, early noughties up to, say playing under 16 2003, and the coaches over us spoke back like with almost war stories of the backs and forwards games they used to play and what a staple it was. And like realistically, so we have our base set up here. For some of the 1v1 situations, it was so good. If you were like a cornerback or corner forward, really, really good for being tight to your man or getting away from your man, or if you've won a ball, taking your man on. But there are some issues with where it may not be as useful for the majority of the team, and that's what we're going to look at today. So we started off with our 6 backs or 6 forwards, and I just have a midfielder on each team in here, and our goalie, oranges backs, blues forwards. Ball was fed from here. And that usually led to like everyone, particularly the half forward line midfielders, just moving out closer and closer and closer. So the ball that was delivered were these like 10 or 12 yard passes. Generally not ideal. There could be some, if you had a good striker for the feeder, and generally like if it was someone's parent when you're playing underage, maybe not ideal the quality of the ball they're putting in, but they could put in, if they were a good striker, some really good ball into a corner forward. So good to give quality ball to the forward, and you'd hope then they might get used to getting quality ball in games, but really good for the corner back to get good at defending situations like that. Otherwise then, it was usually just kind of high ball lumped on full back, full forward, or sometimes a high ball from like 8 or 12 or 15 yards away on players in the half back line, which generally wasn't ideal, and midfielders were like largely irrelevant. So some of the big issues, when backs won the ball, you're either like being somewhat sound and you're trying to work it out and hand pass it to the feeder standing in the middle of the pitch, not really where you want your backs putting the ball, or you got the ball and you just lumped it as hard as you could to the far end of the field. Think of getting the ball, you break out, you get past the wing forward and you just drive it as far as you can with no thought whatsoever to where it's actually going. Midfielders are largely irrelevant in a game like this. It's whether you're the attacking or the defending player, it's just so unrealistic, the majority of things they're doing, that you're better off going practicing something else nearly. And then the high balls, particularly the ones dropping on the half backs, they're just not remotely representative of the type of high ball or the context the high ball comes on you in an actual game. So we're going to look at this through a few steps. The first progression we're going to look at is how we can maybe include some opposition puckouts. So the first one, this is our initial setup here. We still have our feeder here in the middle of the pitch. Instead of leaving on the pitch, we're going to push them to the far end of the field. Ideally, you just actually use your goalkeeper for this. If you have 2 goalkeepers, you can swap them dual roles. Otherwise, you send them to the far end. And from here now, they hit a puck out to where they normally hit a long puck out. Left, right, central, whatever is a good puck out for the team you're actually training. And that serves to pull the players into positions where they know a puck out is realistically going to go, half back, half forward. But you're also hoping it brings the midfielders across in front, so they're there fighting for the breaking balls. So some of the benefits here, it's a realistic high ball in terms of distance and trajectory that one drops on him. The midfielders then can fight for the breaks. They come in, you're hoping there's a bit more communication between who the ball is dropping on, who's coming in on it, the timing of coming in, the body position on coming in for a break. And like I just have 2 midfielders there, you can set up with 4 and they divide themselves into pods, and that's good for just organising who goes which side in the game. Once the ball is won, it's probably going to be a little bit too congested to get a shot away, so that's why it becomes important to start feeding in your forwards, and that's going to start encouraging a little bit more realistic inside movement of the forwards further in. You're inside your full forward line. Like, one drawback I will say is it's still not realistic enough when the backs do win the ball. It's still just a case of, do you work it out to the middle, do you drive it, do you just be sound and hit it back to the goalie at the far end? Again, not where you want actually a ball going. You can set up gates and stuff, but they can be a little bit contrived at times. So the next one we're going to look at is how can we actually start bringing in realistic delivery options for the backs when they win the ball, and that's how we add in some attackers in an overloaded situation at the opposite end. So again, this is back to our initial setup or our previous setup with the ball coming from the goalie at the far end. But now we're going to add in 2 blue attackers and 1 orange defender. And why are we setting up like this and not as a 2v2? Obviously it's going to be dependent on how many players you have access to in training. But I find this works particularly well because if the oranges should be feeding orange here, not blue, but you get what I mean, if I point the wrong colours. So when the oranges get the ball, they're now looking up and trying to feed in a corner forward at the far end. So instead of just getting the ball, hitting it straight down the line, they now need to look up for that orange defender to see, are they covering something off? It also puts in place a very clear avoidance zone. That's where you do not want the ball going. That's pocket in front of a centre back, particularly if they're somewhat loose. You're trying to keep the ball wide as much as possible. If the ball is on one side of the field, they look down to deliver a ball straight down the line. Then the centre back is either covering over that side and forcing some bit of a switch pass, or if someone is super ambitious and try to make this really ambitious looping pass to the far end, then you would hope the centre back cuts that out. And it makes it more realistically because your blue players there, they can drop out a little bit to stop a lower hanging puck out, so it has to be longer. The orange backs need to focus on the quality of delivery to cut out that sweeper at the far end, who again should be blue, not orange there. You can rotate the players, whoever your full forward, full backline players are, the opposite end, just rotate them every 5, 8 balls, every 4 minutes, whatever you like that way. But also that orange player who is sitting in, say, as a de facto sweeper or centre back, allow them into the game. If they win a ball, feel free to play. If they've a long strike or accurate enough, they can score it, record it, and set up as we're playing oranges v blues here, or we're playing team 1 v team 2. The more scores they get from your poor deliveries, that is your punishment for those, or let them play in better quality attacks. So the backs who don't give quality ball to the far end are automatically punished by either conceding a score or having a really good delivery back against them. So not quite specifically a progression of the last game, more a variation of, and one I've talked about before, is where we start bringing a little bit more delivery from our own keeper, because we do use short puckouts. Let's work them in the way. So this is going to be set up on half the pitch. You can set up on a full pitch, so I've set up as 5v5 there, but you could go up to 8v8 and go full width across. Sorry, it's quarter the pitch here. The backs receive the ball from the goalkeeper, and say the orange backs here are trying to work the ball out through the 2 red gates we have set up. You can, from there, they turn around and get a score. You can have something to deliver to the far end, whatever you like based on numbers that you have. That's your delivery zone. The forwards then are trying to turn the ball over and work a score, and you can mix that for goals or points based on what you want. If you have 2 games set up, I'd probably combine 1 to points and 1 to goals, just for safety of the goalkeeper, instead of both potentially having the option to go for goals. And just your general options for progressions or modifications here. You can play 6 deliveries from the keeper, or play for 3 to 4 minutes based on what's going on. Time works well if you've a couple of games going. If you want to keep score and outcomes of it, then maybe 6 balls. What can we get from this? You can go a long recovery or a long reset after each puck out to give time to reset. Or you can do shorter games and shorter resets after each game, just to force a little bit of quicker and more organisation, everything that way. I'd usually look for 2 minutes recovery after each round here to force quality discussion and feedback without letting it get too long or losing the impact of the recovery times for your group reflections. And like I said, you can adjust this out to a bigger game on half the pitch instead of a quarter of the pitch there. And just like I had in the previous variation, the 2 forwards and 1 defender will work really well here as well if you want to include it. Our final one then is a variation of that game, and we'll just call it work it out, work it in, because a little bit of both. You're trying to work the ball out and turn around and change the point of attack. This will work for both hurling and football. The previous games will probably have been more hurling, although there are little variations you can put on for football. So we have a red arc here. You'd obviously just dot that around with cones. So we have I think it's a 6v6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. A 6v6 of orange and blue. Now the goalkeeper is orange just for the purposes of demonstrating this, but realistically the goalkeeper isn't playing with a team. The goalkeeper will be delivering to a designated team each time. And you also have 4 maroon burgundy floaters. I'll explain those in a second. So we start off. The goalkeeper just finds a designated player. Here it's orange to orange. Long, short, whatever is on. It's find the best option that you can get a pass away. The oranges then have to try and work the ball out past that arc. You set that arc up based on where your scoring zone is. It should be far enough out that they wouldn't be able to score from a free shot. So if you have some really good long strikers, I'd push that out further past 65. If it's an underage team, I'll probably arc it somewhere around the 45. Realistically, just outside your main realistic, 75 chance and above scoring zone. Once they've worked it back out, they're going for a score. They can go for a point, they can go for a goal, whatever's on. There's no set number of passes you need to get. It's just get the ball, work it out, then play what's in front of you. And they can, you can leave someone inside making the diagonal runs and everyone else pull out and give space. They can try work it through the line, say. I know there's obviously no lines here, but you can bring it through those, try and get your point away. And once you've scored, you keep possession the next time. If it's turned over, so for example, if the Blues win a ball, they need to work it out and bring it back in. If it goes wide, lose possession. So the next delivery is to the Blues. If you're turned over, Blues get a score, next delivery is to the Blues. So it's in your best interest to try and keep possession and get scores, because that's how you keep the ball as much as possible. The floaters out here then, so they're neutral. Basically, if an orange gives them the ball, they can give it back to any of the orange players, outside or inside the arc. Same thing if a blue player gets the ball, but you need to work it out. If someone from inside the arc gives it to him, then it doesn't count as working it across. You still need to get that ball across the arc itself. Just some of the main setups of it here. So 6v6 up to 8v8 based on what you have. Short, medium delivery, just because there'll be no room for anything else. Although the keeper, if it's on and someone's outside and they're not marked up, they can hit a long puck out to someone outside. Work the ball across the arc. You're immediately then just trying to work a score. Floaters are there as optional, and they're good recoveries for players. You can give them they can be orange or blue or whatever colour bibs you're using. They're not tied to that team when they're out there, but once you sub them in or sub them out, or rotate them in or rotate them out, they're used for that. And if it's turned over, you work it out and then go for your score again straight away. That's just 4 ways to make backs and forwards a little bit more realistic and suitable to coaching, with a bit more decision making and thought around what our players are doing. If you want a few guidelines around how to use that to develop a little bit more conditioning alongside just the decision making and skills, to get the games based conditioning guide below. And if you found this useful, then check this video up here for more information on games that you can use to develop your coaching.